One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is having to do with towns like this and cities where people live in them and work in them, sometimes commute into larger cities, but they fall into a monotony, they fall into a routine of transportation, usually within 50 miles, 5 days a week, and then 2 days they have off and they sit around in their hot tubs or they play miniature golf in their backyard. And that's as far as they get. If you looked at the routing, the trip log of where they go in their life, there'd be a huge pattern from where they live to where they work, to where they shop, back to where they live, with a few side trips to relatives. We're going east, by the way. This is Eagle Grove. A few side trips to their relatives, and possibly some kind of function like going to a water park somewhere in the county or going to the county fair once a year. But that's it. That's as far as they go. And you can tell. It's easy to do. You can check yourself on this. Get one of those navigation panels. Like Garmin or Rand McNally, that automatically keeps a trip log of where you go. Set it up, put it in your car, have it connect with the GPS. Some good looking women in this town sometimes. But they all leave when they're 18. Set up this navigation system, this GPS system, with a screen and so on and so forth. Set it up so it's always running, always working. You can erase all the data later. There's always a way to do that. And let it run for 3 months. Use it for 3 months and see where you go. Just leave it on. Let it work. It's connecting to 4 or 5 satellites over your head. And it will keep a trip log and a map of where you go. After 3 months, take a look at that trip log. You'll be amazed at how little you actually get around, unless you're like me. This is Wright County, by the way. We have to go east to keep the glare of the sun off the windshield, so you can see. Eagle Grove's in the far western side of Wright County. So when you go east, you go across the entire county. When you look at that trip log after 3 months or 6 months, you will see very definite patterns in where you go every day and every week. There's always a way to erase that trip log, so don't worry about that. You can always do certain things to get rid of it. Erase it entirely. But set it up and have it operating for 3 months, or if you've had one all this time and you haven't looked at the trip log, take a look at it. If you're the typical resident, which means you live in a city or a town, you work in that town or you work nearby it, you will not find much in the way of differentiation in that trip log. It will be from A to B to C to A to B to C to A to B to C. The enemies of the people, which include anyone who's political, greedy, deviated, self-presuming, medias, anything like that, they use that fact to get over on everyone. They use the fact that people do not get out and see what's really going on in any state, against the people of that state. People have become so capsulated, so confined to their routines, that they do not understand what they're actually living in. And I'm referring to... Do I really want to go that way? I'm referring to state boundaries. State boundaries, by the way, which were imposed upon geographical regions and geological regions, which you don't even think about, except in the largest terms like prairie, desert, mountains, and so on. That is what existed to begin with. These state boundaries were put over all of this artificially. But even so, you're not aware of what's within the boundaries that are artificial, like Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota. Well, in South Dakota, they probably are more aware. South Dakota is so wide and so big, and you have to travel so much in South Dakota just to get anywhere. The people of South Dakota have a higher awareness of what their state within those boundaries actually contains, which can be translated into what their state is, which really means the geography within those state boundaries, which is now called the state of South Dakota. Nebraska is the same way. Nebraska is so large and so wide and spread out that if you live in Nebraska, you've got to travel across Nebraska, and you get a much better idea of what it is that is contained within those state boundaries. What is actually, or I should say to be accurate, could actually be called the state. The collection of geography known as the state of Nebraska, South Dakota, Missouri. It'd be tough to see all of Missouri. There's a lot of it, and it goes up and down and 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 up and down. In Missouri, you're always going up and down and up and down and up and down. But still, you can see all of Missouri given time and get an idea of what the geography is inside the state boundaries that can be called the state of Missouri. What else could be called the state of Missouri? Not St. Louis, not Kansas City, not Chillicothe, not St. Joseph. It's not the towns, it's the land. These state boundaries have been made. They now contain within their artificial lines certain collections of geography, which is the only thing that can be called that state. Next are the people who live with that land, the people who live with that geography. They too become the state. So it's the geography and the people of that geography within those state boundaries that can be called a state, like Iowa, which is where we are. But it just so happens that no one, relatively speaking, a very, very small percentage, knows what Iowa really is, knows what that geography within the state boundaries of Iowa and the people of that geography really is. You've got to follow me on this. There is such a thing as the geography contained within that boundary and the people who live in that geography that can be called the state of Iowa.
Just went down that way. It has to come back and then go back again. I don't know if going that way would be quicker for you to.
Can I go straight ahead?
You sure can, sir.
Okay. Thank you, dear.
Go down and across.
That lady was one of the people in the geography that is within the boundaries of the state of Iowa, so-called. She is Iowa. I think that's local. I think that's a local company. They wouldn't have an outside company just for that. The point of this message, however, is about Iowa itself, what you can call Iowa. The geography, the people in the geography within those boundaries. What is it? It's not worth worrying about any idea that the boundaries should not be where they are. That's long gone, forget about it. They are established, lead them that way. Learn what is inside of those boundaries. That every day you call Iowa, or every day you call Kansas, or every day you call Louisiana, or every day you call Florida. Learn what the geography is within those boundaries and what the people of that geography are. I didn't say the people of the cities. I did not say the people of the businesses. I did not say the people of the politics and the schemes and the lies and the deviants and so on and so forth. I said the people of the geography within those state borders, whatever they are. Learn that before you start talking about your state. Know that before you hear anyone else tell you about your state. Well, Florida is this, and we represent the great state of Florida. Those political pigs have no clue as to what Florida is. All they know is the political machine that wants to rule the capital of the political entity called Florida. That's what they know. They do not know the geography or the people of the geography. You're looking at the geography of Iowa right now. We're still in Wright County, of course. One of the reasons I wanted to say all of this is because Iowa is very different across the board. I know I used to live in the East. I know how people out there used to think about Iowa. It was considered to be flat as a checkerboard, as flat as a table, and dull, boring, a lot of space, and if you were evil and greedy like the Buies, you could ruin it all you wanted to, and no one would care. The reality is, it's not all flat. There is a great level called the level of the Great Plains. Most of the elevation out here is below the level and then back up. It's not necessarily above the level of the Great Plains, it is below it. Or where the plains convolute and ripple, or where large rivers have gouged valleys through the surface of the Great Plains. Right now we're on the level of the Great Plains, and everything looks flat to somebody who's from the Rocky Mountains. But the fact of it is, every 10 miles, this place changes. Every 10 miles, it's not the same. It is as though Iowa, quite unintentionally, was laid out in 10-mile squares. 10 miles by 10 miles. 100 square miles. And they were built, developed differently. Because if I go 10 miles in that direction, things change. I know that. I know right where I am. 10 miles over there, it is not like this. 10 miles over there, it's not like this. 10 miles straight ahead, it is not like this. It changes. It's not the same shape. It's not the same composition. To know Iowa, to know what it really is geographically, and therefore to understand the people who are living in it, you've got to be out here. You can't be like the Buies, who point at a place and say, kill it, and a whole bunch of gnomes and dwarves and assholes from out of state come pouring in with pieces of ugly windmills and build 100 windmills, licking their chops and counting their money as they do so, and looking around very guiltily, looking around with very guilty looks, knowing that they are criminals, knowing they're killing a state. And then as soon as they're done, they leave as fast as they can. They come in, they invade, they destroy, they build these ugly windmills, and they leave as fast as they can. That's how the BOIs operate. The BOIs know they can't get Iowans to kill their own state. They cannot get anyone who really knows what Iowa is to kill Iowa. It won't happen. What you can get is people who live in towns or cities and do not travel and do not know that there really is an Iowa and what Iowa really is. They have no idea. They live in Cedar Rapids and they never leave that sewer, and it's a sewer. And they know nothing about Iowa. And they were born in Cedar Rapids, raised in that sty, know nothing about Iowa, stupidly and falsely call themselves Iowans because they've been propagandized and fed that crap all their lives. And then they say it's good to put up windmills in Iowa. It's not hurting anything. And the asshole who says it has never left Cedar Rapids. But he is brainwashed, calls itself an Iowan, and thinks, hey, BOIs are all right. That's how big business, politics, deviates, anyone who's greedy, manipulates the populations that are stagnant, do not move, do not travel, do not go around the geographical area of that state boundary, see the people, see the land, and come to understand what the state really is. People isolated in their jobs, in their towns, in their cities, they're clueless as to what is out here. And it's obvious. Look at the rape of Iowa. Look at what the BOIs are doing to Iowa. They're ruining this place. Anything they touch dies. And only people from outside the state, who should have the same thing done to their own towns, by the way. What they do to Iowa should happen to them. They don't even know what their own states are. They just know whatever they conceive to be a state is not this state. So, fuck this state. We'll ruin Iowa for money and get out as fast as we can. And that's exactly what they do. They couldn't care less what Iowa is. The double indemnity, the double problem is so many people in that geographical area called Iowa themselves do not know what Iowa is. And to know what Iowa is, you have to be out here at least 100 times. To be more accurate than that, after 100 times, you start to have the ability to understand what is here. You can look at this through videos all day long, and it does no good to you to actually be out here and understand the spirit that was contained in the geography by those artificial boundaries. I think the Indians would understand that the spirit of the various geographies that were contained artificially within the boundaries of states. Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kentucky, so on and so forth. Some states are easier to understand than others if you go out into them and travel around and actually experience what is out here. But Iowa is not that way. Iowa, which is supposed to be dull and boring and the same everywhere, changes every 10 miles. It's different every 100 square miles. It's a collective of geography, and you have to be out in here 100 times to understand that you did not know what it is. There is something here. It's actually a lot of something here, and you're beginning to understand what it is. So as of trip 101, you start to soak up. You start to become a part of what is out here. What it really is, why it really is, why that cemetery is there. What is in that cemetery? They did not get the word about the flowers. Out here, if you're a caretaker of a cemetery, you want to make sure all the flowers that want to grow there can grow there. Because these cemeteries have been untouched and undisturbed for centuries. Which means the original flowers that were in those cemeteries are still growing there, but have been wiped out everywhere else. Everything else is agriculture. Soybeans and corn. And wheat is coming in. That soy sauce from Japan that you put on your meals, you put on your dinners, comes in the little Japanese bottles. That came from right here. That soy sauce was probably processed in Eagle Grove. When you get out here 100 times, or 101, 102, 103 times, it starts to permeate into your brain and into your soul that there really is something here beyond nomenclature, beyond bullshit, beyond queer shit, beyond logos, beyond state symbols, way beyond politics, way beyond the ugly faces of politicians, way beyond the lies of deviants, way beyond the greedy intentions of viewies. There really is something here. It's alive, it's vibrant, and you're starting to get into it, and you're starting to understand it. That is what Iowa really is. The reason I say this is because the photography that I put on the internet is meant to help people who cannot get around to at least see something of Iowa beyond their own walls, beyond their own towns, that it's still alive in places. It's what I call New Jersey dead in other places. The queer companies in New Jersey that build the butt ugly windmills and bring them in have killed large sections of Iowa for greed and want to kill it because they could not care less about states and people. All my life I've heard that New Jersey is a shithole. I've never heard anything good about New Jersey. What I just said about people in their so-called geographical states not knowing what is inside those boundaries apparently is enormously true for everyone in New Jersey. All my life, all I've heard is that New Jersey is a shithole, a dump, a mess, an environmental wasteland. Hopefully that's improved, but the entire phenomenon of that just proves what I'm saying. People locked into jobs, locked into towns, locked into dogmas and cliques and bullshit ideas and queer shit programs, locked into dementias, operational functional dementias. They blab all day long, the state this, the state that, New Jersey this, New Jersey that, but they know nothing about the real New Jersey, whatever the geography is within that boundary, and the people of that geography. That is New Jersey. Not Trenton. Not a city, not a town. Unless the town is part of the land. Town is part of the land, no problem. Then it's part of the geography. It's really part of the state of New Jersey or Wyoming, Arizona, wherever. Some states are easier to understand than others. Iowa is not easy to understand really quickly. You've got to be out here a ways and a while at a time. You've got to be exposed to it. You've got to be breathing it, seeing it, bitten by it, overheated by it, frozen almost to death by it. You've got to live through the winters here, all the other seasons, roast in the summer and freeze in January. You've got to see all of it happening on a continual basis past that 100 mark, and then you start to understand. It starts to seep into your bones what's really here and what's really going on. Why it's here. Why someone like me who's an environmentalist doesn't complain at all about all of this agriculture. I have no problems with this. I have no problems with how it was done. It's the latest parts that are done wrong. The original foundation development was done very right. The latest parts, which include the butt ugly windmills and these very ugly, smelly hog plants, producing politicians now. Those most modern things are the things that are out of synchronization with the real Iowa. With the way this really is out here and the way it should be. There is a great amount of evidence here of sympathy and symphony with the land, the way it was developed and laid out. A lot of great intelligence was put into setting up the agriculture to begin with. A lot of landscaping was done too. A lot of very classical, world-class landscaping exists here in Iowa that is being killed by butt ugly windmills and hog plants. The great efforts of the people of this land over the last 2 centuries is being shit on by the butt ugly windmills and these big hog plants, now producing politicians. So it's the latest part that is wrong. It's the most modern part that is 180 degrees out of what it should be. But what was done before the butt ugly windmills, before the hog plants, what was done before was actually magnificent. Very well done. World class in that it's in its own class and at a very high quality. I don't know of any other place that could compete with Iowa for its agricultural architecture. Before the hog plants, before the butt ugly windmills. Wisconsin is different. Wisconsin is a totally different view and texture and structure and sculpture. Wisconsin is quite different. Looks different. Smells different. Feels different. Nebraska is completely and totally different again. Iowa, before the hog plants and before the butt ugly windmills, was a work of art. And a lot of it is still here. But you do not know that until you're out here 100 times. You do not start to understand, and you cannot start to appreciate it and be part of it until you've been out here 100 times. It's not instant oatmeal. It's not done for your immediate gratification. It's not built for your instant approval. Oh my God, it doesn't need your approval. Oh my God, you're not the great one out here. The land is. The architecture is. The agriculture is. The geography is. The people of the geography are. Not you. You are not the great one. Shining your great light upon Iowa. To rousing applause from every corn plant in sight. Within a 15-mile radius. No, that's not how it works. I suppose part of this is justifying to everyone, somehow, some way, why I do all of this photography. Well, it helps all the people who cannot get out. All the people who cannot get out get to see more, get to see something, get to see life is still happening. Those that can get out, if they hear this, if they understand this, if it clicks in, and they absorb at least this much, then when they go out to find out what Iowa really is, and if you're a working person, that could take years, but it's worth the effort. When they decide to do so, they've got an idea of what to do. It's not entirely an alien adventure, an off-the-wall impossibility, something unintelligent, non-tangible, cannot be reached. It's actually something that can happen, can be understood, can be experienced. And by watching a video like this, they actually understand more of what they would do and how they should do it and what it's all about if they actually start to travel around Iowa to learn what Iowa really is, as opposed to listening to some piece of shit on TV mouthing empty words called Iowa this, Iowa that, Iowa this, Iowa that, having less than a sugar cube of brain power and knowing absolutely nothing about the real state of Iowa. But you've been listening to their crap all your life, right? And you just go along with it, you just accept it. You accept that those assholes know what Iowa is just because they send crews of celebrities to a soybean field out here and stand in the middle of it and say they know what Iowa is. And they kiss some babies and they lick some butts and they say they're good to the people of Iowa. They do not know jack shit about Iowa. They're not jack shit themselves to begin with. They're scum. I don't want them out here. But you, who are real people, you need to be out here. You need to find out what this is, because this is being killed. This is being killed. And you do not even know it or realize what is being killed. You do not understand the value of what is out here and the travesty, the tragedy of its demise, of its death. You're just going to sit around and let it happen because you don't know any better. And you cannot know any better about this state until you've been out here 100 times and it starts to soak in.